I drink your milkshake. I drink it up!
As always, we're going to have the information along the top, the shots, and the shot type, the top right, time code on the left. Along the bottom, you'll see our sequence. The yellow is our video layer and all the cuts that are in this particular edit. The two blue layers are our audio, the top one being Eli, or Paul Dano's dialogue, and the bottom being Daniel Day-Lewis's dialogue along the bottom. You will also notice that we dropped out most of the ambiance outside of the spoken word, so you can see exactly where these lines land, and in particular cuts, off screen or on screen, or the J cuts, the L cuts, the lead-ins, all that stuff. We're going to walk through it, and let's get started. So with this particular scene, as any editor would do, I split it into 4 distinct parts. This is part 1, which I've labeled False Prophet. It's about 3 minutes, 15 seconds. We're going to walk through it so we can take notice of the choices made by the editor in this particular dialogue.
Daniel, I'm asking if you'd like to have business with the Church of the Third Revelation.
This is an establishing shot, traditional 2-shot, give us a sense of the space, give us a sense of the actors in the space. We will not return to this shot throughout the rest of this dialogue.
I'd be happy to work with you. Yes, of course, that's wonderful.
But there is one condition for this work.
All right.
I'd like you to tell me that you were a false prophet.
Daniel's line there, motivating that edit into Eli's reaction. Reactions are going to be key in this particular dialogue. It's quite simple, but you'll notice that reactions almost supersede the words. We're going to notice that here with a couple of off-screen dialogue choices.
I'd like you to tell me that you are and have been false prophet.
That's our first off-screen dialogue from Daniel Plainview towards Eli. It's much more impactful to stay with the reaction here and keep that line off screen because it's important to see what and where Eli is thinking. He's realizing this particular interaction with Daniel is going to be the same as it has been throughout the film, and he's going to have a formidable foe in his request.
But that's a lie. It's a lie. I cannot say it.
That's the other off-screen dialogue that Eli, this time, let's go back and hear that. These, again, are things that may have gone unnoticed when you watch the scene, but you have to understand that in this particular interaction, the reactions of both characters are much more important than the actual lines and who's actually saying them. I mean, you can see the contempt in Daniel's eyes as a reaction is much more important than what Eli is saying, even though Eli feels very strongly about not being able to say what Daniel wants him to say. We're going to hear this off-screen dialogue right now.
It's a lie. I cannot say it.
And then we're back to him. We stayed with him throughout for this audio. He's now thinking that he's going to have to give in.
When can we begin to drill?
Very soon.
How long will it take to bring in the well?
It shouldn't take long.
I would like a $100,000 signing bonus plus the $5 that is owed to me with interest.
So what makes that line particularly strong again as a reaction shot line? Another editor may choose to be on Eli for this particular line, but again, it's more important to see where Daniel's perspective is. You can tell that he just doesn't care. He doesn't care and hasn't cared since he probably walked in what Eli has to say. So let's roll back and see that off-screen dialogue on the cut here.
Take to bring in the well.
It shouldn't take long.
I would like a $100,000 signing bonus plus the $5 that is owed to me with interest.
That's only fair.
All those things, of course, Daniel does not agree with, does not care about. And he shows. He's eating. He's not even looking at him for most of that line, which Eli had probably rehearsed up to this point. Why stay off of Eli? Well, because we need to know that Daniel doesn't care. The reaction here is great. The timing playing is great on that edit. He knows and is surrendering a bit because he knows what he has to do.
I am a false prophet and God.
It's important to stay with Eli in his reaction. He starts to give the line, and then we're going to L cut. L cut, of course, is an edit where the video precedes the audio of the scene that is upcoming. A J cut is the opposite. The audio leads into the video of the next cut. Here we have a bit of an L cut, and you can see it at the bottom where the video is going to come in. Even though Eli is speaking, video is going to come in and land on Daniel, and then Daniel's going to deliver his lines where he wants Eli to speak up, speak louder, and pretty much do everything he is asking.
It's a superstition. If that's what you believe, then I will say it.
Say it like you mean it. Say it like it's your sermon. Don't smile.
At this point, Daniel knows he has beaten Eli in this particular portion of the exchange early on. And he's going to have a couple of off-screen dialogues. We are going to stay with Eli as he stands.
Don't smile.
He says, "Don't smile." Again, off-screen. Don't need to show Daniel.
I am a false prophet. God is a
Why don't you
superstition.
stand up?
All these off-screen. Another off-screen or off-camera dialogue. And a particular choice here, again, an opportunity for an action cut. Maybe go back to that two-shot that we opened the dialogue with. But why go to that when it's going to remove us from the intensity of this exchange? We stay here in the medium shot. Camera moves up with him. That was a choice by the editor. Going back.
I am a false prophet. God is a
Why don't you
superstition.
stand up? Put your glass down.
So on action, we are staying with Eli as he stands.
A false prophet. God is a superstition.
Eli, if you can stop.
There's a great edit here with the interruption. It's another opportunity for a quick J cut, typically used for interruption with a nice little overlap on the edit itself to kind of break up this moment. You know, this is very important for Eli, where he has to declare this, make this statement he doesn't truly believe in, and Daniel's going to interrupt him. So we're going to go back again. It's a nice little edit there.
God is a superstition.
Eli, if you can stop. Just imagine this is your church here, and you have a full congregation.
I am a false prophet. God is a superstition.
Say it again.
There's an opportunity for another L cut, in this case, where the audio is preceding this shot, and we stay on Daniel because you can see that he's just loving this moment.
I am a false prophet. God is a superstition.
Say it again.
A false prophet. God is a superstition.
Can't hear you at the back.
I am a false prophet.
These are some
God
great
is a
off-screen,
superstition.
off-camera dialogues
I am
from
a
Daniel
false
to push the
prophet.
moment.
God is a superstition.
Say it again.
I am a false prophet. God is a superstition.
Those areas have been drilled.
So that's part one. Everything up to that line where he acknowledges that those areas have been drilled. Why? Because it changes the direction of the dialogue. So part two of this particular dialogue is Eli's confession. It's about a minute and a half, starts about 3:15. We start off with some classical edits. There is some off-screen dialogue again, and we're going to walk through it. We're going to roll back just a hair, start right here when Daniel delivers this line that pretty much stops and changes the direction of this dialogue.
Fit God is a superstition.
Those areas have been drilled. Those areas have been drilled.
Some great off-screen choices here. The reaction, again, is of utmost importance. Eli's reaction that he pretty much declared his non-faith for the sake of money. We're going to follow him again as we followed him standing up. We're going to follow him sitting down. But these off-screen, these off-camera dialogues are great.
It's called drainage, Eli. I own everything.
Another J cut into Daniel speaking.
What's underneath it.
But there are no derricks there. This is the bandy track. Do you understand?
Do you understand, Eli?
Again, an off-screen line by the Eli character here is important. We stay with Daniel because Daniel's starting to hit his limit with Eli, and we're starting to notice that here. So we might as well stay with him. The performance is, of course, fantastic. We're going to stay on it because it's more important as he delivers these lines.
You understand? I drink your water. I drink it up. Every day, I drink the blood of lamb from Bandish Tract. You can sit down again.
So 406 here for 10. Again, we're going to follow Eli as he sits back down. Another choice by the editor to stay on this medium shot as we come back down. Just like we went back up. We do have the chance to make it an action edit and go back to the 2-shot. But why do that? These reactions and this exchange and interplay between them is much more interesting than cutting something for the sake of action. This playing of time is great as well. The performance and the directing and the dirtying of this shot is a directorial choice, a composition choice that helps move everything forward here with Eli's confession.
I need a friend.
Yes, of course you do.
That's it. I need help. I'm a sinner. I've let the devil grab hold of me in ways I never imagined. I'm so full of sin.
The Lord sometimes challenges us as
Oh,
Eli.
yes, he does. Daniel, yes, he does.
Yes, he does.
Completely.
I actually really like that off-screen audio usage in that particular shot to stay on Daniel, even though Eli is really emotional at this point. It's almost like they're reverting to like an animal state, and it's a little bit foreshadowing what might happen towards the end of this dialogue.
He does.
Completely failed to
And again, another J cut leading the audio of Eli underscore to go under that previous shot.
I must have this. My investment.
This particular shot and choice by the editor is one of the two most interesting in this particular dialogue. To me, it's one of those happy accidents that works in a number of different ways. Again, we have an opportunity for an action edit to go back to that 2-shot, to an alternate wide, to an over the shoulder, to something that might show Daniel stand, but it's not really necessary. It really works to have that foreshadowing of Daniel now taking over the dialogue, taking over this relationship. Something bad is coming. At a certain point in this shot, Eli's entire face is covered. One of those happy accidents from the particular angle that was used. Why not use it in a story sense?
I must have this. My investments. Daniel, I won't bore you, but if I could grab the Lord's hand for help, I would. But he does these things all the time, these mysteries that he presents, and while we wait for his word.
But you're not the chosen brother, Eli.
And that's the end of part 2. another bombshell that Eli has to deal with at this point. His knowledge of oil drilling and drainage is limited, and it cost him the possibility of drilling. And now Daniel's telling him that it was his brother that betrayed his family and him. But again, I have to go back to that shot. This shot almost looks like a unused daily. Just the angle on Eli that was on the edit room floor. But the fact that they used it is just great.
I must have this. My investments have.
I mean, you can even see Daniel stay in character.
If I could grab the Lord's hand for help, I would, but he does these things all the time, these mysteries that he presents. And
The split face there with Eli is important.
while we wait for his word.
You're not the chosen brother, Eli. It's Paul.
So that's the end of part 2. So part 3 begins here at about 5:45 to about 7:49, and this entire portion of the dialogue is a 2-shot. It represents everything we know up to this point, the relationship between the two. So let's go on to part 3, which begins here with Daniel letting Eli know that it was his brother that betrayed him.
Wait for his word.
You're not the chosen brother, Eli. It was Paul who was chosen. As he found me and told me about your land. You're just a
And the editor's choice here to stay on this 2-shot, number one, the performance is incredible. The performances are fantastic, so that might be the main reason.
He knew what was there, and he found me to take it out of the ground. But the funny thing is, listen. I paid him $10,000 cash in hand. Just like that. He has his own company now. Prosperous little business, 3 wells producing, $5,000. Stop crying, you sniveling ass. Stop your nonsense.
Again, this is a 2-shot. The only other 2-shot we had was at the beginning of this dialogue, but this 2-shot means a lot more because Daniel is looming over Eli physically and in the words that he is saying. So even if we couldn't hear what he was saying, we know the relationship at this point. We know a lot of aspects of the relationship. So we might as well stay with this shot, stay with this timing. And it's a whole new angle than that previous shot that we had at the beginning.
Drainage, Eli, boy.
This particular part will end with our first action edit, which leads towards the end of the scene.
My straw reaches across and starts to drink your milkshake. I drink your milkshake. I drink it up.
Don't bully me, Daniel.
There's our first action edit, 2 or 3 cuts, and that ends part 3. Part 4 is from about 7:43, 7:45-ish to about the end, which is 10 minutes. So it's a 3-minute piece. It's, of course, where most of the action is, so we got most of our action edits. So let's move on to part 4. And we'll roll it back a little bit so we start at the milkshake line.
Milkshake. I drink it up.
Don't bully me, Daniel.
A great action edit there. Maybe a little bit delayed. If we step through it. You know, because here he's maybe already a foot off the... Here he's about a foot off this chair. He's actually almost standing up, but here he's still sitting. So the overlay is a little bit delayed, but my guess is an editorial decision is to get that face shot right there, because the Daniel Day-Lewis face of anger is one of a kind. You don't want to, if he was doing it right, he would have done it right around here and cut out those 4 frames. Well, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 5 frames. But he let it overlay in order to get that face. Still works. Great full shot here. Eli action onto the floor.
You think your song and dance and your superstition would help you, Eli?
These particular shots now towards the end here, shot counter shot, are both wides. Interestingly enough, this shot counter shot from left to right, my guess is to accentuate the space, open it up a little bit in terms of where they are on the stage. There's not many places to hide, not many places to run. It's not typical. There's no need for a close-up. There's no need for him picking up the close-up of the ball. These are all choices that were made. The action is clean. The cuts are clean. The ball there is seamless. Maybe a little bit closer than expected, just to kind of see what his reaction is. Maybe got a good hit there on the foot. Again, these wide to wide to wide. It's not typical. There's no close-ups of Eli or Daniel anymore here up until the very end. The urgency is fantastic. This right here is one of my favorite shots. Similar to the happy accident of him stepping in front of the Eli shot and maintaining that for story purpose. This is another choice. Let the water splash on the camera. It's what we call reflexivity, an acknowledgement of the process of filmmaking, and let's let that water flow onto the camera. We now know we're in the scene, but it seems to not matter. It's especially with the words that Daniel says afterwards. We have the screen filled with water. A great shot selection there, a great moment to maintain and stay with, and I'm sure they stayed with it mainly because of the lines that followed. If he kept throwing another ball, or if he was saying something different, but the very fact that he said, I am the third revelation, the end days are here for Eli. So why not break that fourth wall and leave the water on the screen? Could be one of those happy accidents. I just love it so much. Let's go back and look at that. Great choice. And then we get to a two-shot wide that slowly pushes in and allows the action to play out. Again, there's no need for close-ups. There's no need for cutaways. I think this is much more impactful. The shot gets a little bit more intense here, right here, and it gets a little very dirty there at the top of that edit. So if you look back and see, you might choose to have a medium shot of Eli getting down and maybe a close-up of him running. That angle that we're going to lead up to might be a choice, but why not dirty it up even more? It adds a little bit to the disconnectedness of everything that's happening. All that stuff in front of the camera, and let the action go until he is hit over the head by Daniel. Now, we could have easily went to this medium shot of him crawling earlier. Presumably that action exists, rather than covering it up with some of this stuff up front. The uncomfortableness of this is also a choice. It works in this particular case because we're going from a wide, clean, two-shot action staged setup here. Almost looks like a play, like a staged play, to a very dirty shot. The first one where we're on tracks, or we're tracking, or we're on a steady cam. That medium shot there, maybe seemingly innocuous, but really works because we don't even see Eli in the screen. And we see Daniel make his way over to him and deliver the deadly blow. Good action cut. Looks like the timing of that is actually right on. There might be a couple frames there, but we need to allow this shot to resonate a little bit before he actually hits the ground. Then we go quickly to an interesting shot here. Rather than starting any kind of blood or a wide or anything like that, we go to a low angle medium shot. The first time we see Daniel in this particular perspective, we break a little bit of the axis of action line between the two in the action we've been setting up, because we're going now, the camera is set now behind Eli, looking up here, and we stay with this shot. Interesting choice, mainly because a couple of moments here where we can cut an action again. No purpose to do it. There's no purpose to see the blows. Makes more sense to stay here with Daniel in these final moments. And then finally we get a glimpse of what's happening, and now we switch the exact opposite side. Interesting choice here to go back to that opposite side, basically opposite of where we're looking. Again, break that axis of action just to get this great Dutched view of Daniel falling to the floor on equal level of Eli. They're both now on the floor. Squeezing the most impact out of this ending is done here with these handful of collected shots in this sequence. We're going to cut away here for just a second to have our witness enter the scene from the other side of the room, and then we go back to a wide so we can see the entire staged area. There's no need to cut any close-ups or walking or face or anything else. Just stay with him coming down, deliver his line, and then we cut to our wide.
I'm finished.
And then we got a great J-cut with the music. So that is There Will Be Blood, the final scene, the decoded edit of that final dialogue. What makes it so great? Only 32 shots, 31 actual edits. They were scrutinized more than you can imagine. A frame here, a frame there. It's important to know that 31 edits happened, 32 shots each with a purpose, so that we can squeeze out every ounce of drama in this fantastic scene. All right, catch you guys on the next dialogue or the next scene we break down. See you soon.